Good morning, everyone. I'm your host, Tony Gilfillan. It is Monday, February 9th, and we're going to jump into it. Um, so, wanted to first call out we have our developer program update call tomorrow. If you are not registered for that, I will drop the link to that registration in the description as well as in the live chat here. It's going to let me. No, it's not going to let me. So go ahead and check out the video description and be sure to register for the DPUC, all the latest and greatest updates and fun from the usual suspects here in developer relations. Definitely come join us. If you are a NFL fan, the Super Bowl was last night. Congrats to the Seattle Seahawks winning Super Bowl 60. Um, the ads were pretty good last night. My particular favorite ad was the last trailer for Project Hail Mary. This is a book that I'm pretty big fan of. Ryan Gosling is Grace in that. So definitely check that out. This one's coming out in March. Super excited to see this movie come. There was some also pretty big Workday news this morning. Looks like Anil is coming back to essentially help be the CEO as the company transitions into this new world of AI. So pretty exciting stuff. Anil's always been pretty involved in Workday since the beginning. I think it'll be a interesting time with him back at the helm. All right, and that brings me to what exactly I wanted to do today is start work on turning that expenses APIs that I had been working on to basically create essentially recurring expenses into automated expense reports. So I want to take the orchestrations that I built and turn them into an agent. And to do that, I'm essentially going to need some APIs that my agent can leverage to create essentially an automated agent that can do this for me. So I can ask it, check my expenses and create any expense reports for recurring expenses. So we're gonna try and do that. So I have my big orchestration here that I had created before. I essentially need to break this up into multiple different APIs to leverage to give this agent tools to be able to do this entire workflow. So right now it's retrieving everything. This is a useless expense report call, I'm pretty sure. This was just for testing. And then it loops through the credit card transactions and then creates an expense report. When it finds new transaction. See if I was filtering that. That's just filtering on the person, but it's not filtering on status. It's been a minute since I've looked at this orchestration. I need to see the responses here before I can make any adjustments. So when I mention headless APIs, essentially that's basically just saying it's an API that's not directly tied to a UI, so it kind of lives on its own. And we're going to use that headless API to give an agent the powers it needs to run this whole workflow through. So it's going to be able to retrieve the expense not the expense reports, the credit card transactions, and then it's going to be able to create an expense report and create the expense lines based on the credit card transactions that it retrieves. And this is filtering. Where? Yeah, expense status new. This is also what I need to filter on. Is that filter the cart? Logging that. Just grabbing the transaction. That's the transaction for. Is it really only just returning the new one? Do I not need to filter? 5 results. Yeah, it looks like there's multiple new transactions. Did I put that filter on this quest? I did, yeah. Here it is. That's where I was doing the filtering on the actual SOAP call. So this is filtering on new transactions, and I'm filtering on the employee ID of Logan, who is kicking off this transaction. So all that filtering is actually working the way I needed it. Perfect. I think I could probably just leave this API alone and then just let a agent call this directly to be able to create this expense report. So let's go ahead and jump ahead into just calling this. So I don't need these extra tests. These were for when I was testing the different APIs. I can just delete these illustrations and then I'll deploy this again. All right. All right, everything's saved and deployed. And last thing I want to check is tenant, just to make sure that I didn't actually leave that new transaction sitting on expense report that's not submitted. I did test with this particular credit card transaction several times. Just typing this. I removed last one. It is okay, good thing I checked. It. Perfect. and save later. Alrighty, so I have my orchestrate. API. Let's try and hit it with an external tool. Launch orchestration, and these all need to be post. And I actually blanking on security to run. Where is launch documentation? I'm pretty sure this is behind. It's definitely behind a bearer token. Does Logan have the proper permission? Possibly already. Let's just try it with her token. Connect. Copy. In. Station header. There we go. Okay, so it does work with just Logan's ID. That will have also created us another expense report I got to clean up. This. Perfect. Hit. Can now hit my orchestration. I have an orchestration that works, that creates my expense report. Now I just need to give a agent the tools to essentially call that API. Go to Flowwise, build our agent here. Personal. Other window. All right. I'm going to create a agent. Let's see. My other. This was just a generic email agent that we were using a while back. So this one. So we got an agent. Agent's going to have a tool. You tie this directly to EP call. For West Post. This. So there is one extra step I'm gonna have to do here is the bearer token. So I just pulled that directly from the dev site to essentially complete this flow. Essentially, the agent needs access to be able to retrieve that bearer token and then use the bearer token, the access token that it gets back from that, to basically create the proper authorization headers. For testing purposes, these do last an hour. So just kind of slap them in here. Empty body. Well, oh. And need model didn't. Tropics here. Use Sonnet because Opus a token hog. Okay, let's see. And do what I just gave it access to do. Create. Create. That's cool. How easy is that? It even had the ID from the response. I go over to my new report. There it is in draft status. Airfare. Cool. Well, that was surprisingly easy. So now I want to do one extra step is basically once it creates the expense report, I want the agent to ask if we want to submit it. So let's go ahead and cancel this expense report. And instead of just spitting back an ID of, I think that's the credit card transaction ID that I'm spitting back at the user, I want to basically say what the expense report cost was and the expense report ID for the user to reference, and then see tenant. And actually, be pretty nice if I can. Do I have access to that? Being able to just get directly to the expense report. As if I could link to the expense report. Be handy. I could have basically a deep link from the agent. Essentially here, when it loops into the loop, it's looking for those new transactions, and we're already filtering on Logan's ID. So on aggregator, basically where I need to create more information for the agent to be able to reference. Wonder if I just output the whole thing. The agent's probably smart enough to parse everything without me doing too much to it. Where figure aggregation. I'm not going to filter this. So I essentially want the whole item. And then this API call never worked, did it? The submit expense report API. That was the ID that I was spitting back. This is the WID of the expense report. Double check that. What's not? WID of the line item? Or no, that should be the WID of the credit card transaction. Have that in. integration IDs report. Sure it is, but I'd like to clarify it. Section. That is just the credit card transaction number. I want to see the whole credit card transaction. So basically, the bot will, not the bot, the agent will have much more information to send back to me. I also want to see the expense report. Is that not being populated here properly? An expense report. I mean, this has got to be airing because it's running every single time. Sending post. Just want to see the error on this API. No, this ID is correct because it's adding, yeah, it's adding lines properly. Probably security related if I had to guess. But before we run out of time here, the agent can spit out some more information at me. Save what I did. Just spitting back that same. I didn't. All right, more time. See how simple I can put this and it'll still understand me. Yeah, still uses the tool. Yeah, it parses it pretty nicely there. Awesome. Pretty cool. So yeah, pretty powerful, pretty easy to set up. It's not an MCP tool, which would be ideal, but it is one of those pre-baked tools within an agent builder. You have all kinds of different tools you can select from here. This was just an HTTP call. But, ideally, I would like to have that live inside an MCP server that I can add a bunch more tools to, and then you don't have to, continuously add a tool for every single post you want to do, but rather just reference it here in your builder. Pretty neat though. I think I'll probably iterate on this for another day or so. Tomorrow we'll make this a little bit more interesting and try to get it to be able to submit my expense report as well. Thanks everybody for joining. And again, be sure to register for the DPU